Welcome back to the library, dear wanderers. Today we're gonna head back to Library Wing 1, the Hidden Nest, back to the First Oaks shelf where we'll pick up the first book we see. This one was brought to the library by Tuned to a Dead Channel. Now without further ado, The Deposition of Sir John Demot. I, Sir John Demot, do hereby pen this deposition regarding the matter of Sir Theophilus Forbald, his device, the incident relating thereof, and the final and bizarre incidents relating to his demise and the time shortly thereafter. I do hereby swear the incident related in this deposition are the full and complete truth as I understand it. I do so swear to this under the pain of dismissal by the one Almighty God. I leave this deposition in the hands of my nephew with the instructions that it is to be opened and read only after my demise, and only after a time of 1 full year has passed from that gloomy event. I leave such instructions because this deposition is quite capable of tarnishing the reputation of my friend Sir Forbald, and that of myself. Cowardly, I wish to delay the truth until I am past the reach of its claws. However, the events here related will not allow themselves to go untold. Sir Forbald was always an odd man. That is not to say he was in any way outside the social norm. Far from it. Sir Forbald was in fact a social butterfly of legendary dimensions. No, it is better said that, like Sir Forbald the Elder, the younger Sir Forbald lusted for more than what normal existence could provide. Handsome, dashing, with full title and considerable wealth, Sir Forbald was well equipped for a life of leisure and privilege. His soul, however, was made of adventure, burning and pure. Unlike his father, who ventured into the unknown via academia, the young Forbald sought out the full living truth in the flesh. He would vanish for months with a vague statement of, "I think I'll go on safari for a bit, be back before Thanksgiving or thereabouts, then return with the bones and heads of beasts so terrible and strange he'd be held down as a charlatan." He'd then vanish again in a red rage and return to deposit the living specimen in the homes of his detractors. One man, awakening to the throaty roar of the Arctic white bear in his dining room, almost perished from the shock. What's more, he was a man of science in its purest form. Unfettered by the new closed-minded school of logic, he nurtured the new Euclid and Galileo of his time, and sought out the newest inventions and discoveries with bright, open eyes. Where his father had dabbled and delved into spheres forbidden by the church, the young Forbald was a pure unfettered realist. When he announced the creation of a device based from the formula and symbols of his father's work, it was met with no small amount of surprise. It was mid-September, and he had gathered everyone at the club to see the device. The young Sir Forbald had placed a cloth over a lumpy shape on the center table and had forbidden any prying eyes, or hands, as Dr. Calgary had found out. He was still nursing his reddened hand when I arrived and took my accustomed chair. Forbald surged into a rather flowery speech on the subject of science and the unknown. His major tenet was that science and what we deem the occult were in fact more similar than some would say. Much like two men of different nations reciting a poem, each was saying the same thing but in different language and terms. Calgary and Fox attempted to leave twice in a huff, but was stopped more by curiosity than our half-hearted pleading. Seeing that he'd strained the somewhat limited imaginations of some of the audience, he lifted the cloth off with a flourish. Below was a contraption spawned from the heart of Big Ben, a steam engine, and some would say the very bowels of hell. It was a mass of pipes, gears, belts, rings, and other mechanical devices. At the fore and aft ends, however, were two large polished gold rings, large enough to admit the intrusion of a human arm into their circumference. Touching a plate on the side, Forebold started the machine into a flurry of motion, every inch of it seeming to spin and clank. Sir Theophilus Forebold then stated that the device on the table before us would allow his intrusion into times long past. That, with a simple insertion of the arm, he could reach through the veil of the past and pluck forth such items that could be transported by hand. A flurry of questions rose from the assembly, which he battered about for a moment. Before stating, he would put them to rest with an example. He set both golden rings spinning, then asked Fox what he would like retrieved. Fox thought for a moment, then stated he would like a coin from the day of Christ's crucifixion, fresh from the mint. Forebold smiled and commented on Fox's legendary ambition before thrusting his arm into the device. His arm stayed inside for several moments before Forebold winced, then pulled his hand free, tossing a small object to Fox. Fox captured it before dropping it with a yelp. It struck the floor with a small puff of smoke as it singed the carpet, and there for all to see sat a silver Roman coin. It still had a soft glow at its heart from the now ancient forges that had spawned it. Fox sat dumbfounded even as the assembly surged to investigate the device. In truth, I remember little of the details after that initial demonstration. Try as they may, his detractors could find no fault or artifice anywhere during the proceedings. The fishing, as he called it, proceeded without fail, retrieving items and documents to astound even the most jaded. Myself, I refrained from asking anything, even when the young Forebold implored me to test him. He spoke to me then of his new ambition. The past is a cold stone, he said, and time a well-worn path made by man and his eternal march. He, having found himself the master of time, now wished to become Lord of Space. I asked what on earth he meant, and he said that his device, properly calibrated, could allow his reach to extend to any place in the world. He could draw forth the crown jewels if he wished, or, and at this his eyes glinted, he could reach out to the far stars. He could hold in his hand a stone from the moon. Possesses himself a portion of stone that no man, living or dead, had ever seen, possessed, or touched. Seeing the light in his eyes, the animation in his face, I quailed. Unlike a good Christian friend, I fled under the veil of a feigned fatigue and led him to his devices. Of the event itself I know little. My fright and cowardice continued, and I was not present when he attempted to reach the stony face of the moon. I was told he was in high spirits and that up until the event was in total confidence of his success. His arm entered the device, and he reached about for several moments. Then, suddenly lurching against the device, as if he was pulled from within, and he started to shriek. Several men went to try and extract him, but Forebold was stuck fast, as if affixed in iron bands. His screams continued for a time before finally quieting. He calmed himself and the others, then sent for Dr. Calgary. I know what happened next only from Calgary, and the truth of it is not assured. I met Calgary in the club days after the event and found him well into his cups. He was distressed, and I prodded him as to the cause. He told me that he had been summoned by Forbold and dismissed the assembly to evaluate the patient. He was told that Forbold had become trapped in the device and was prepared to do whatever in his power to stop the bleeding and extract the flesh he could. He was shocked when, now in private, Forbold told him that his arm was not trapped, but that Calgary must swear to amputate anyway. Calgary told me that Forbold threatened him with a ruin so total that he swore to the operation without question. Forbold withdrew his arm, and Calgary said he screamed like a woman as he looked at what emerged. Forbold refused to look at it, but Calgary said he saw more than he would ever wish on the devil himself. The arm had vanished at the shoulder, replaced with a horror the equal of and torment of the pit. Blubbery, sagging, the arm was a blobby horror of grey flabby flesh. Tiny nubs dotted the end in a sick mockery of digits, all 12 of them tipped with glossy black nails. The whole mass jiggled and writhed, bending at angles unnatural to both man and beast. Calgary stated that when it was cut, the flesh recoiled and bled a blue-red fluid as cold as the grave and thick as mud. He disposed of it, dressed the stump, and retched on the floor. The flesh started to rot instantly. Even the tiny nub of human bone that rested at the tip of the cut, the grey tissue connected seamlessly to it. Forbold swore him to secrecy, but it was unnecessary. Calgary told only me, then leapt from his 6-story window the next day. The world was told that Forbold had lost his arm in the device and had it disassembled quietly. The sensation died down in time, and the young Sir Forbold continued the life of adventure as if there had been no interruption. Even with the loss of his arm, he proceeded with more vigor and skill than men with both extremities. His exploits are a matter of very open and public record, so I will not touch on them here. In his declining years, he was set upon by a nervous condition. Withdrawing from the public eye, he remained a force in both politics and the social climate, but not as a direct player. He carried with him the air of the fugitive, of one hunted. He spoke to me little, but when he did, he spoke of poor sleep, bad dreams, and sounds in the dark. I worried for his mind, but he seemed sound if troubled. He was visiting my house when he passed. The world knows that he passed in his sleep, a peaceful end to a well-lived life. What I would not give for that to be the truth of it. I was awoken by the sound of a crash and shouting. The darkness was total, and the bedlam so vocal that I rose and dashed down the hallway in my nightshirt unshod, in a terror that my friend was having a fit or was trapped in the grips of a walking dream. The door was bolted, and as I attempted to force the entry, there arose such a wail from the bedroom that I recoiled staring. The sound was unlike anything I have ever heard before or since. Undulating, it was bass and sharp at the same moment, the sound of evil so profound it could cause the enemy to cower. With it rose the scream of my friend, until both ended with a sudden sharp yelp. I forced the door with the aid of a candlestick and swung wide the door. Forbold was dead. Torn over his face and arms, he lay in a pool of his life's blood already cooling. Locked over him, dead but clutching, was the thing. Blobby, saggy under the weight of its own protuberance. His face was a vague lump of tissue at the end of its wormy body. Jaws as wide as a carriage door, the flesh around it was torn and stripped as if it had been forced to chew through its own flesh to breathe. The limbs seemed to be placed randomly and oozed its foul life freely as it rotted. This did not send me out screaming to faint in the hole. Its horror was not what caused me to lie to God and the law and bribe their silence. No, the horror that sent me reeling was what was on the thing's right side. Stuck in the flesh, as if welded to it, was a pure, clean human arm, the hand of which was crowned with the four-bowled family ring. I do not presume to speak on what may or may not have happened. I leave it here only the truth as I know. I wish to end this and be quit of the memory with this document, but I doubt my freedom. I will offer only this comment in place of lurid speculation. If one steals even in error, one should be ready to return the item. If he is no longer in possession of the item, he should ready himself for the wrath of the wronged party. And with that, we've come to the end of our reading. Thank you very much for coming, dear wanderers. It has been an honor reading for you. Good luck out there, and remember, return your library books on time. There may come a time when you'll wish you did.